I think we were talking in a previous one about home dojos and or dojangs and how that is really kind of an expression of you as a martial artist. And I feel like, this place is such a part of you and I. And I really feel like a lot of the roots of where Rising Phoenix comes from, where One Way comes from, is this kind of experience.
So Trevor, what do you got there in your cup? What is that? Big VT
Some black
mug.
tea.
Some black tea?
Yeah. Nothing special. I have to apologize. It's dried a little bit, but I kind of just got out of the shower recently, so I have a little bit of that wet dog look going on right now.
Nice.
Is not helped by the ready
You
flannel.
know, I hate to
very
break
much the Vermont
yeah.
kind of look.
Yeah. I hate to break it to you though, but you always got the wet dog look going on.
I know. Well, usually my hair isn't as wet as
yeah, no, for sure. That mug is absolutely massive. I'm looking. My mug's like huge, but in comparison, it looks pathetic.
Well, I had a mentor in high school who had, I forget what the name of it was, but it was like the Bubba mug, and it was just this massive thing.
Nice.
I don't have one of those, sadly. I would if I would drink that much tea if I had one of them.
So you've been up there in Vermont. You've been up there for at least a few weeks now, I think.
Yes.
How long? Like a month or 3 weeks?
When did I leave? I left, I think, at the end of the month, a week before the end of the month, which was when was that? You lose all track of time up here. What even day is it today? The 21st. Okay, well, yeah, so I've been here about a month.
About a month, yeah. Well, people are already starting to miss you. Then you went up there to run your camp, which you run every year. And this year was looking really promising. You had a lot of leads, as I remember, right?
Yeah, well, that was a really exciting thing is, we got way more interest than we've ever had before. And then right as that was all coming in, the pandemic happened. And, basically like 2 weeks in, we had to make the call to cancel it. But we're going to be doing some other stuff. So that's actually quite exciting because a lot of times, as I'm sure you're aware, you have things that you want to be doing, but they gonna get pushed to the back as the immediate, okay, well, I have to do this in a week, and that takes precedence. So we're gonna get to a lot of stuff that I've wanted to address, wanted to take a second pass at, with a smaller group of people who I really trust, being more vulnerable with, and kind of workshopping material. So it's going to be a good time and exciting, and there's going to be so I'm excited for it.
Well, that's good news for our students too, because today we're here to announce that we're going to be restarting the camp, which was something that I started way back in the day, many years ago now, and was kind of those facilities that I built for our martial arts camp is now what you're using for your acting camps. There's a lot of synergy there. And I'm sure that the things that you're going to be building up there right now with your students and stuff and assistants is going to be stuff that's going to benefit, my students as well, in their own way. And we're here to talk about the camp and kind of what they should expect and how it's this really awesome experience. But this year is going to be very unique. It's going to be very different from years in the past because it's not just going to be the Rising Phoenix camp. It's going to be the One-Way Retreat. And that's going to be a little bit different of a focus, but a lot of this stuff is going to be very similar to that camp experience that we had all those years ago. When I first came back from Korea, my main focus was getting my school off the ground. And while we're kind of in a rocky spot right now due to COVID-19, I have faith that we're going to get back to where we were before and be stronger than ever. And so we're looking forward at restarting the camp this year as the One-Way Retreat. And the things that are going to be different.
I think you should just clarify, when you say this year, you mean 2021, not
Yes, yes,
this.
2021. Yes. We hope that by that time, you know, a vaccine, things will be a different place, and it would be a good launching off point for us. And the reason why we're having this video is because we want you guys to get kind of excited about it. You know, some of you are going to get invited to come up, and like my leadership team, you know, definitely want to see coming up to the retreat. And it's going to be a really unique opportunity to take your training to the next level. As before, the retreat is going to be an opportunity to train 8 hours a day, a super high level of intensity, and really take your martial arts training to the next level. I was talking actually yesterday to my class, my leadership team during the Rise of the Phoenix class about you can train 2 times a week for the rest of your life, and there will be limits to how good you can be, because if you want to get really skilled at something, you have to train in an intensive manner where you're really putting in the hours. You know, I say that 2 times a week is enough to maintain. When you get to 3 times a week, you can start seeing some good progress, and then it's upwards from there. And so I really encourage those that do get invited to make their schedule free to come to the retreat, because it's going to be one of those rare opportunities where they can really take their training to the next level. It's also going to be, you know, maybe I should step back just a step and say that, you know, Trevor and I had a big announcement plan for Oneway and talking about that. I know for some of my students right now, they're listening to this and saying, what is Oneway? It's kind of catching me off guard. Don't worry, we have a lot to talk about that, and we're going to be talking about it on this show over the next few months and beyond. But we don't want to get too bogged down in that right now. We had a big series of events that were going to happen. There was kind of unveil this to our student body, but we were unfortunately not able to do that because we closed down right in March, kind of out of the blue, and it really threw a wrench in the gears. But we want to wait until we're in a better spot where people are coming back, our classes are fuller, and we can start talking about this kind of at length. But because Trevor is up there in Vermont right now, able to get some good footage, we thought, let's take a moment and do an episode on the retreat right now, so to build that momentum for the future. So anyway, getting back on topic, we're going to be doing some hard training. Trevor's going to be talking a little bit about what to expect, because he's done it in years past, and he's been running his camp, which is actually really similar to the retreat. But it's also going to be an opportunity for some of our Oneway practitioners that aren't part of Rising Phoenix to get briefed on the curriculum and what they should be doing at their schools. And trying at every year, as the curriculum is being refined and changing, it will be an opportunity for us to all get on the same page, for us to network and touch base. And it's also going to be a chance for me to look at my students, especially my upper rank students, like my black belts, my master level students, and see if they're ready to go up for that next degree. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
You know, I think we were talking in a previous one about home dojos and dojangs, and how that is really kind of an expression of you as a martial artist. And I feel like, you know, this place is such a part of you and I. And I really feel like a lot of the roots of where Rising Phoenix comes from, where Oneway comes from, is this kind of experience, the experience, the monastic feel of being up in the wilderness training. So I think it's just really, it's a very powerful experience for our Rising Phoenix students to kind of get that. And I think if they do come up, they'll feel a lot of the stuff that is we talk about, and it kind of exists a little bit in the background in our school, really comes to the forefront when people come up for the camp. All of the mindfulness, a lot of the philosophy, things like that, I feel like have a very strong presence when you're meditating every day as part of the kind of curriculum that you're doing and stuff like that. But I don't want to get too much into it. But like really a lot of the kind of soul and spirit and feel of who we are as martial artists really comes up here.
Yeah. So Trevor, can you kind of take people through some of the experiences that they might encounter in the summer camp, and also, you can shoot over some of the experiences that you've been doing with your acting camp that you think would relate to the martial arts camp, because you're a big part of the retreat, and I'm going to be listening to you for ideas too. And you've had that experience of being part of my camp, and I think a lot of those things that we did before are going to be done again.
Yeah, so it's kind of tricky where to start, because obviously you ran the first camp, and I helped you run it, and I was part of it, and I remember thinking, oh, there's so many things in this that would be perfect for actors. There's a lot of kind of lessons that are taught, and there's a lot of that kind of rugged self-reliance and intensity that I think is really useful for actors. But without getting too much into that, it's a very intense experience. But because it is so intense, so rigorous, I find it's really, really rewarding. So just to help people kind of get an idea, we wake up in the morning. The time may vary, but for my camp, I wake them up at 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. Nice. So the sun, and I always joke with them, because people who know me know I'm absolutely a night owl. So that's the most.
Do you come in with the marching drums?
No. I actually have a drum that I wake them up with. No joke.
You have a what?
I toyed with the idea of learning to play bagpipes so that I could walk up with playing bagpipes. So by the time I get to them, they're definitely awake.
Anyway. One thing that I've always wanted to do with the camp, and we'll see if we could ever get around to doing it, but our great grandfather always, he was the one who bought this property way back in the day. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that. I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, we can.
He was, during the Cold War, he was a little bit worried about where things were going, and he said, we should get a place out in the middle of nowhere that we can go to if things get real bad. And he found this old potato farm in the middle of nowhere that had been on the market for like 50 years or something. And he bought it for like $1 an acre. At least that's the story. I don't know. Maybe it was $2, but it was really cheap. And it's been in our family.
It was an abandoned potato.
Yeah, abandoned potato farm. Like all the buildings had fallen down and everything. And the fields had gone back to forests. There are still a few fields up there. But it has some of the best woods in the whole area, because it's been basically untouched for the last, how long have we had in the family? Like 70 years?
Over 70 years now.
So, I grew up, that's all I've ever known is that place. It's basically like a family heritage site. My father, that's all he's ever known.
I should say that when you say abandoned potato farm, people think of a farm like you might see in the Midwest or around in Texas. This is very mountainous. If you've ever seen The Last of the Mohicans, where they like look out, that's what it looks like. There's a sense of pristine wilderness that you cannot find anywhere else. Really. Well, obviously I'm a little bit biased about it, but I think it's quite majestic, quite magical.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And, it's been a part of our family for so long that we've started to create these names of different locations. Like there's Jack's Jungle after my great uncle, Jack, and Lindick Woods, which is a merger of my father's name with my aunt's name. And, we have people come to visit us, and we allow them to name things, as a great honor. And then we have this one Moss Road that runs through the forest. We go there and we lay down, and it's so comfy and awesome. And we call it Hafez Highway after an Egyptian friend of ours who came there all the way from Egypt. And there's a lot of places like that. Every forest has like a history, has a name, and we have all these rivers, these springs. In fact, one of the reasons my grandfather bought that property was it had the best well water in town. And he actually doused for the water. And he said when he got to the spot where we put that pump house, it literally almost pulled the stick out of his hand. It bent through the bark. It kind of tore the bark and pulled the whole stick down. And even when the town was drying up from water, people would go up to that spot to get water. And because of that, we have all these springs up there. And one of the things we like to do is when people come to visit or when we run the camp, we'll do runs through the property. And we've added on to it over the years, and now we're up to 300 some acres.
Over 300. It's like 360, I think.
Oh yeah. So, and, and so there's a lot of these springs, and we'll run from spring to spring, get drinks of water. Also, what's really cool about that property is it now sits cradled between two parks or two preserves. Yeah. One, which is basically there's a, I like to call it a mountain. It's really a hill, but it's a
tall hill.
It's big compared for Texans or for Wisconsinites.
Yeah.
It's a little mountain, and one half is our Geldo Retreat Center, and our family, we call it Geldo Acres. That's our cute family name for it. And the other side is the Bar Hill Nature Preserve. And so essentially that entire mountain is free reign for our students. And every day, we get up at the crack of dawn, sometimes by Trevor playing a bagpipe, other times by maybe some other means, and we go running up through the mountains and meditate at the top of the hill, looking out over this just pristine and beautiful landscape like you've never seen before. And the sunsets and sunrises up there are just like, I remember the first time I saw a sunrise. Yeah. My dad brought me up, and we have this cabin that's like basically like sitting on top of the mountain. And I can't remember if it was I think we snowshoed in, or even snowshoed in, but we walked in through the snow, and we used to have to park the car like almost down in town, like before the nature preserve. And we had to walk all the way many miles up through the snow to get to our cabin. And we got up there, and I was like 8 years old. So, I'm basically dragging myself to the snow. Yeah. I'm literally climbing through my father's footsteps to get up to the cabin. And we get up there, and we're just totally exhausted. We throw ourselves on the couches in the living room because everything else is like freezing cold, and we need the fireplace to keep us warm. And I fall asleep, and I wake up, and my dad wakes me up. He says, Michael, get up, look. And I've never seen anything like that before. That sunrise, just all mountain peaks, everything pristine as far as the eye could see. Unfortunately, they've made a few windmills now, which is unfortunate. But it was all as pristine as you could see. And then just reds and oranges, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. Yeah. And that's the kind of vista you can expect to see at the top of the mountain after that grueling first run when you're first getting started. I did want to go back one step because I got kind of pulled off the idea of bagpipes. You were talking about bagpipes, and the whole reason I wanted to tell them the story of Geldo Acres and our property up there is because our grandfather always wanted to get a foghorn and put it up on the deck and blow the foghorn. Just because
an alpine horn.
Yeah. Just so that because it would echo through the canyons and all over the mountains. Now that would be a cool way to wake them up in the morning with a big foghorn.
Yeah.
So
anyway, so that's how we start every morning, is with that run. And for my students, the dew is still on the grass. Oftentimes we'll have, we're actually so high up, you know, we kind of downplay, oh, it's not a mountain. We're so high up that often the clouds are coming into windows because we're so high. When the clouds get low, it's like a fog bank rolling in the window.
It's a surreal experience. You open that window and it just rolls in.
Yeah.
Something like, it's just so enchanting, you know, it's something you never experienced before.
So that's how we start every morning. And then we start with that beautiful vista that we meditate to. And then for my students, and this is something I picked up from you, we eat all of our meals together. There's a very strong kind of community ensemble feel throughout the entire program, because you're doing these very grueling things where you're like, all right, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. But it feels like the group is like, you know, we got to make this through it all together. And there's a really, really sweet, compassionate, and empathic feel to it, as you guys are just like, all right, more, keep going, keep going. So we eat all our meals together. I do. And we even cook them together. And then, you know, we do the mornings, which are, you know, basically 4.5 hours of various stuff. For my students, I'm doing acting technique, but it's split between, like, you know, acting theory and then physical techniques, because I want to keep them very, very physical. And then we have lunch, and then we do stuff in the afternoons. For my students, we're doing stuff like archery, we're doing weapons and stage combat, but also a lot of kind of wilderness survival things. So we do a lot of awareness exercises. We do making cordage, tracking exercises, foraging for wild edibles, things like that.
So much more than an acting camp, Trevor.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is. And that's
whole
every
experience.
comes up. They're like, wow. And that's why it's difficult for me to summarize. You know, I have to sell it as something.
Yeah.
But a lot of the lessons that we're teaching, without getting too into it, because I don't want to get sidetracked.
No, let's go.
You know, a lot of the lessons are not acting lessons, but they just make you a more confident, self-reliant, interesting person.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself then helps people be better actors.
And, you know, we don't want to talk too much about the exact rites of passage that are associated with this, but trust me, there are many, and we are very excited for you to partake in them. But I think that this one of the things that we really focus in on at the camp is building confidence, becoming vulnerable. And, you know, you can't be confident without being vulnerable. Those things, you know, you can't be courageous without being afraid. So you first need to become vulnerable for that to happen. But anyway, we have these sort of exercises that become sort of rites of passage at the retreat that we're really excited to share.
And I'll say, you know, especially for my students, often actors are very comfortable with certain things. They're very, like, emotionally comfortable with, like,
yeah,
all right, I'm just gonna, like, lay in someone's arms and be very emotionally vulnerable, but they often lack the physical vulnerability, like the idea of just being like, all right, I'm just gonna go for a run and then we're gonna do all these push-ups. That's really scary. Whereas the inverse is true for most people, and especially for martial arts. The physical stuff is not going to be as scary if you're a martial artist, like the idea of, okay, I'm just going to work out a lot. But anyway,
but we get them out of their shell. We do our best. we do our best to get them out of their shell, despite their resolve.
That's a very strong theme for me, for my camp, is challenging you in ways that you haven't been challenged before. You know, a lot of people will be like, all right, I can, this is something that I know I can do and I know I can handle. And we'll put those kinds of things in front of you, but then we'll also put things that you never experienced before, that you feel very outside of your comfort zone. And then when you succeed in those, what that does for your confidence, for your idea of self, saying like, yeah, it doesn't matter if I'm out in the woods in an environment that I've never been in before, asked to do something. If I can do that, well, then all these other things that seem, you know, seemed very scary before, well, they're going to be fine. They're going to be no problem at all. And so that's one thing that I do consistently. I don't tell them what we're doing. I just say, yeah, don't worry about it. Whatever we do next, you're going to be fine. You're going to handle it and you're going to tackle it. They tend to hate that at the beginning.
I know people hate that, but that's the
because
best.
they want to be mentally prepared, right?
Yep.
They want to say, okay,
Exactly.
I have to do this challenging thing next. And I say, you don't need that. That's your paranoia or anxiety saying, I need to be ready for it. No, you don't. You will be fine. You will handle yourself. So
I couldn't agree with that more.
That are not just acting exercises. That's where we do a lot of the wilderness stuff. But anyway, yeah.
I mean, I think one of the great benefits of an intensive thing like this is that you can get people out of their shell. And like you said, like when you know what's going to happen, you're ready for it, you know, and then you can kind of put your defenses up, and it really deprives you of the raw experience that's really going to make, it's going to sink deep inside and really make positive change. So let's talk a little bit about the facility. So I started with this idea. I was like, look, we have this beautiful land. Let's share it with our friends and our students. And I'm going to start this camp up in Vermont. And so I'm like, okay, I need a platform. So
you need a flat surface that you can do.
Yeah, I need something flat because it's a mountain, you know, and there's no flat things, you know. How do we do our forms? And someone's up here and someone's down there, and they got to like do their forms down the hill and stuff. So it's like, okay, I'm going to make a platform, and got out there, post hole digger and an auger and putting some sonotubes down, and I made a platform. And the first year was rain or shine, raining on the platform, you know, like really gritty, but a really cool experience.
I'd be very curious if we can find pictures from that first, because I know we have pictures from like every year. Our camp, I know I have lots of pictures now.
Yeah,
I'm curious if we can find. We'll try and put them in now.
Photos. I have to think back on how many years we did it, but there was a certain point where we got a roof on, and that definitely improved. But the roof was really unfinished up there. But my full plan was always train above or sleep above and train below, and I always really liked that. There was a if you go back in our lineage far enough, you find that the master who started the Jido Kwan actually was trained under Gichin Funakoshi, the founder of Shotokan Karate. And one of the reasons why everyone knows what Shotokan Karate is because Gichin Funakoshi started this residency program at his university, instructor training program at his university, where people basically lived above and trained below. And one of my real, although I don't know him personally, inspirations in the martial arts is Hirokazu Kanazawa. And he was one of these graduates from that program who basically traveled all over the world and taught Shotokan Karate. And so that's kind of what we're thinking with the retreat, you know. It's a chance for people to get that elite level training. And we don't want to separate you from the training floor too distantly. So we put you up top, sleep up there, and then in the morning you come down. And since Trevor started his camp, he's added on to those facilities. He's finished out that upstairs in a nice way. I think we have lights and electricity up there. I mean, you guys are getting a 5-star experience.
Yeah, well, that was a really exciting development when we got that. We've been iterating every year. We try to add a little bit on. We had that loft up once we finished that. We just
you built the stairs. Yes.
And those were really scary.
You guys had to climb up a rope to get to the top before. No, it was a rickety little ladder, but you had about a 50% chance of perishing in flames trying to get up there.
Yeah, but so we've replaced that. We have like a really nice back area to it now, and then we've redone the interior, so that's all done. And then a really exciting development was last year. We got a grant from Ben & Jerry's, the ice cream guys, right?
Yeah.
They gave us a grant to help us put electricity in there. So now there are lights and outlets and stuff. So
that's so cool. And it's kind of nice to collaborate on the same thing, because a lot of those things that you've done to build a camp have been beneficial you know, to our students. And then one of the things that you really wanted was a stage so that your performers could act on the stage. And I thought, you know, why don't we have this serve as a dual purpose? It's a stage, but it's also like the dining hall, you know? And so we have the kind of 3 levels. We have the training floor, and then we have the sort of stage dining hall. And then you have above that is the sleeping quarters. And so it's like a ship, you know, where you live and breathe on the ship. And, you know, we go off on our forays, our runs and stuff. And there's, you know, in the evenings we'll do bonfires. And Trevor, you took this just massive stone that you found somewhere around the property.
Oh, yeah.
And you somehow picked it up and put it on like a couple other big stones. This is just massive, like King Arthur's round table out there next to this fire pit. And there's another place for eating, but also for sharing conversation and stories. And we'll get the fire going and you know, reminisce and just socialize, you know, in the evenings.
Yeah. Well, you know, the evenings for me, I find really rewarding. In my camp, and, you know, in both of ours, it's very intense, right? We wake up 6:30 in the morning and we just go all day. We have, you know, we have breaks for eating, but it's a very intense experience. But then at night, some of the nights we're doing outdoor nighttime activities, rites of passage, things like that. But on the other nights that we're not, that are just kind of off, we just hang out. And, you know, I play like board games with my students, and I even have shanty night where I don't know, people probably don't know this about me, but when I was in college, I was in a shanty singing a cappella group. And so, you know, we just get these old sea shanties out and we sing them kind of as a crew, and it's a very fun, relaxed atmosphere. And that's really nice for me because most of the time I'm kind of coordinating. I don't get to really socially hang out, but those evenings that we get to just be like, all right, we put in a hard day of work. Now let's just hang out for an hour or two. Makes those really, really rewarding, really satisfying.
Awesome. Well, we've gone quite a while, and I think we kind of outlined what the camp is and some of the things to expect, but we do want to keep a couple of those things secret so that you don't know everything. You know, just to kind of fill you in, we have some awesome guests coming on in the next few weeks. We got Master Justin Green coming on, and he's an old friend from when I trained at USA Taekwondo, and he now has his own school in Wisconsin. And I have Master Joe Zapka is going to be coming on. He's an old friend from when I trained in Ohio under Grandmaster Kwan. So that's my son. He may be coming on the show right now. So please join us for those things. Stay tuned because we're also going to be talking a lot about Oneway and why Oneway, what Oneway has to offer, what we're trying to achieve with it, how it's going to grow and expand. So please stay tuned to this show. There's a lot of important things coming down, a lot of cool people to get to meet and get to know and share our ideas with and listen to their ideas as well. But until next time, keep training hard.